Hey everybody, my name is Haydn and I'm a full-time software engineer based in London. If you're new around here, I make videos documenting my coding projects, and in this video we're going to be building a Strava to Notion Python script to sync all our Strava data to Notion. So basically what's going to happen is we're going to make this little Python script called Strava API, which will authorize us into Strava. We click OK, you can now close that tab, and what it will do is it will go through and sync our Strava data to Notion. So there you can see it's going through Strava and pulling out our data and adding them into our Notion table row by row. Let's now jump over to PyCharm and implement this. So really quickly, actually, just before we jump over to PyCharm, is that we need to do two things before we can do this. Is we need to set up a developer account on Strava. In order to do that, go to developers.strava.com. Here it says getting started with Strava API, and you basically need to follow this documentation until you get to the point where you've created your application here, and you'll need your client ID and your client secret. The other thing, so the second thing we need to do is go over to your Notion, and you need to create a page in here. And you need to call it Strava, and you can add a nice little icon. Cool, there we go. So you've added your nice little page of Strava. One more thing you need to do at Notion actually as well is you need to come into here and go inspect. And then in here you'll need to go to application, into your storage section, cookies, and then the www.Notion.so, and then in here there is a token called token_version2, and you will need to pull that out and copy that value, so it's the value here, and put that into our code later. I'll tell you when, but just be sure this is how you do it. So I've jumped over to PyCharm now, and just basically we need two packages in order to run this. We need something called Strava IO in order to pull your Strava data out, and we need Notion version 0.027 is the latest one. Cool, so now we've created our virtual environment, we can do pip install -r requirements.txt. The first time I did this, I had the 32-bit version of Python installed and it messed up, so I had to uninstall Python and then reinstall it as the 64-bit. So if you get installation issues, that might be what's going on here. Cool, so that's all ready to go, so we don't need that anymore, we can close that down. What we need to do is create two Python files. One I'm going to call Notion API, and another one I'm going to call Strava API. First off, let's start in Notion API, and sorry, one more file, I'm going to add a config.py. So in here is where we can start adding all our stuff. So in here, I want you to add your token version 2 for Notion. So that's the thing that we pulled out of the web browser. Your client ID and your secret goes in here, and there again, you log on to Strava.com, go to settings, and then you'll have API and you can pull that information out there. So obviously replace these with your actual tokens, otherwise this won't work. Cool, so now that's done, we can start building up the Notion API, and all the Notion API is going to do is basically find that Strava page in our Notion document, and then create a table and then add rows to that table. So all for that, we just need to say from Notion.block import collection view block, which is basically the table, from Notion.client import Notion client so that we can actually interact with it. From config, I want to import my token version 2, and that should be all for now. So I'm going to make a class called Notion interface probably. Let's give this an init. So what do I want in here? I'll say token version 2. We need Notion client, and this is where we need to pass in our token version 2, and then I'm going to say Strava page, and that's the name of our Strava page title, which is obviously this bit here, or this bit in the sidebar, and then I'm going to say Strava page table. Title activity logbook. It's just the name of the table in Notion. So now we need two functions, one called get Strava page, which will obviously go and get our Strava page, and then we need another function called create table, you know, the basically the activity table, and then I think we need one more, which is once we've created the table, add row to table, and this is going to take a table and some data. Cool, so that's all we need for the Notion API, so let's implement these now. So to get a Strava page, I'm going to say Strava page is none, and then I'm going to say for page in self.client, so the Notion client.get top level pages. So that'll be all our pages. If self.strava page title, so if the Strava page title we're looking for is equal to the page dot title, then we can return page. Don't even need that, get rid of that, cool. So in order to create a table, we need a page. So I'm gonna say page is equal to self.get Strava page. This is like how you create the table. It's a bit weird because it's an unofficial Notion API, but just kind of follow along. So we're gonna say the Strava table is equal to the page dot, so from this page, get the children and add a new collection view block. So that's basically add like the table element. And then I'm going to say Strava table dot collection is equal to self client dot get collection, and then in here we need to say self dot client dot create record collection. Parent is equal to the Strava table and the schema. So this is the schema of the table we want. So this is saying create a table, and then of that table, like this is the information to create it, like the schema of the table. So let's basically define the schema. So come over here and create a new Python file called table schema. And again, this is probably going to be a bit confusing, but it's again unofficial API, so don't worry. So we basically this is defining the schema of the table. So we're going to have a couple columns. The title of the column is like the ID of the column, that's called name, and it's going to be type of title. So this is the, in Notion when you can change the type of a cell, this is what's going on here. And then here we just basically have to give them random unique IDs. So I want a date field in my table of type date, a name of type, so this is going to be run or ride because I record my runs or my rides in Notion, and this is a select. Again, I'm going to have a distance of type number, a time of type number, and a calories of type number, and so basically just a table of a couple of things. And I'll show you what that looks like here. So yeah, you'll basically just get a table like this with name, calories, date, distance, time, and type. And type is obviously that select that I've shown you there. So now we can jump back over. So I'm going to import this from table schema, and that's basically how to create a table. So we also need to give this table a title, self.strava page title, and we also need to say we need to give it a view because in Notion obviously you can have different views like gallery or table. We're just going to say view type is equal to table. The Strava table. Cool, so that's basically how you create the table. But the way this is going to work is that if there's not a table there already, it's going to create one. If not, we're going to append to the table that's already there. So I'm just going to come up here and say, check table is not there already. And to do this, you just basically want to say for block in page.children. If the block has an attribute of title, so basically if it has title and block.title is equal to self.strava page title, then we know that this is the Strava page, or not Strava page title. We know that this is basically the table already in our Strava page, so we could just return that block already. So that's how you create a table in the API. And then finally, we just need to add a row to the table. So this is a bit annoying because there's like a bug in the unofficial Notion API where you need to basically call table.collection.parent.views before you do anything, which is super annoying because I was trying to get this to work and it wouldn't work. And then you basically have to call this, and then it does work. I wouldn't want to bore you with that. Let's just kind of carry on. So basically we have a table when we want to add data to it. So first off, you basically just say row is equal to table.collection.add row, which will add a row, and then we can say row.set property, and we can now just start putting our properties in here. So we can say title is equal to I'll create this data object and we'll pass it in, but we're basically just going to populate this with everything we need. And this is kilojoules, which is a really difficult word to spell. Kilojoules, there we go. And then I'm just going to put down here a print of added data.name to table. Make that an F string so it works. But that works obviously if we haven't got anything in the table. What happens if we already have data in the table? We need to make sure that we're not like duplicating stuff and adding it already. So what we can do here is we can say rows is equal to table.collection. It's get rows. Yeah, like that. We basically say, right, if the row name is equal to data.name and the row.date.start.date is equal to data.startDate local.date, and this is for row in rows. So basically for each row in the table, go through it and check if the name is equal to the data we're trying to add, and the date is also equal to the data we're trying to add. So basically we don't add anything that's got the same name and the same date. This means you can't exercise more than once in the same day, but for me it works. If that is the case, if it's not the case, then we can add stuff to the table. Otherwise, kind of ignore this entire thing. And that is all we need for the Notion API. So that is that done. So now let's jump over to the Strava API, which is even simpler and even easier. So for the Strava API, we basically say from Strava.io import Strava auth, and then from Strava.io import Strava.io, our config import our client ID and client secret, and from Notion API import the Notion interface, which is what we made earlier. So we need to basically authenticate ourselves against Strava. So in order to do that, we can say client ID is equal to client ID and the client secret is equal to the client secret, which obviously you get from the Strava website. So let's go off and get our Strava data. So first off, we need to make a client, authenticated client. Access token is token.access token. Well, now we've got fully authenticated. So basically what will happen is when we run the script, it will pop up a little web page that will say, do you authorize us to kind of get your information? Click accept, and then you'll have an authenticated client. And then from the client, we can get our activities. And in order to do that, you say client.get logged in athlete activities. Activity in activities. We basically need to say Notion is equal to Notion interface. We need to get a table. We need to obviously get the Strava table. So we say Notion.get Strava page. And then for activity in the activity, we want to say Notion add row to table, and the table is that, and the activity is that. And that should be all. Cool, so let's run this and see. Rightio, I've discovered that I'm an absolute idiot. The reason this is failing is because we don't want to get the Strava page, we want to create the table, and then this is table, not a page, and that is why it is failing. So there was that, and there was also in the Notion API, this needed to be views, not view, and now this should work, he says, as he live runs this for the first time. Click run. Authorize. There we go, cool. So it's added the table, and then it's going to, it's really slow today for some reason. So it says added test to table. You don't see test yet. Sometimes if you don't see it, you can refresh Notion. Notion doesn't update at the same time. There we go, so you can see they're all being added now. They should do. So you can see the distance I ran, the time I ran, what type it is. And it should just kind of magically now go through and just kind of add all of the little bits. There we go, so you can see it's now like populating that, going through. It is really slow, it's normally a lot quicker than this, it's like dum 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 dum. But now you basically have a script that can sync all your Strava data to Notion, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that will just go through and just keep adding all your data to Notion now. And every time you do a new run, you can just rerun the script and it will import the data in. Cool, so there we go. Now we have a script to import your Strava data to Notion. There was a couple mistakes obviously in the tutorial, but I obviously went through and edited them, so make sure you do check them out. If you've got any questions, be sure to add them in the comments below. If there's enough kind of interest around this, I'll try and package this up into a nice, easy to run kind of like one-time executable rather than having to install it yourself, because I know a lot of people don't really want to run Python code or know how to do it, so it's just easier if they can click a button and import in. The annoying thing obviously is the Notion API is unofficial, so it's like the support and testing. It's still very, very good, but you know, the support and testing around it's not as good as if it was an official API, so it can break and change at any time, and Notion can change at any time. If you like this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe. There's obviously more videos like this on my channel, so be sure to check out those playlists and other videos. All this code will be obviously in a GitHub repository that I'll link in the description if you want to check it out. I hope you found this useful, and have a great day, everyone.